passion, inspiration, determination. Are you ready to jump into a better life? Welcome to our program, Jump Into It. Welcome to Jump Into It, a podcast and live show to help entrepreneurial women jump into a better life. Welcome. I'm your host, Gabrielle Hailmann, and today we have with us, our guest is Tania Mascitelli. And today we're going to be talking about fractional CMOs, and how they can impact your business, or you may even want to consider becoming one. So first of all, I want to just give you a background about myself, that I am also the president and founder of 360 Integral Marketing, and we focus on performance marketing. And why this is important to bring this up is that in helping over 100 businesses be able to excel in their certain industries, we focus on what drives real performance for businesses. We talked about strategy, we talk about technology, we talk about campaigns that drive performance. But one of the things that we didn't want to overlook and include in the Jump Into It podcast is fractional CMOs, because they are really growing in popularity for small, mid-sized entrepreneurs, SMEs. And fractional CMOs grow at a rate of 20 to 30% a year. Those are impressive numbers and not to be overlooked. So to start with the conversation, let's introduce our guest, Tania. Hi, Tania. Thank you for joining Jump Into It.
Hi, Gabrielle. Thanks for having me. It's exciting to be part of the team, part of the podcast. I look forward to our conversation.
Fantastic. Well, Tania is now be part of the 360 team in offering CMO fractional services. So she's going to talk about her journey, how she has evolved from the corporate world to becoming an entrepreneur and helping small, mid-sized businesses. So let's start with that big question. Tania, can you share your journey from the corporate world to where you are now in your career?
Yeah, for sure. I'll take it even a step back. So ever since I was in high school, I always wanted to go into marketing. Actually, when you graduate high school, they tell you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I wrote the marketing girl for Coca-Cola, because I'm not one to like Coca-Cola drinks, but I thought if you can market something you don't like, then you're pretty good at your job. So I've yet to work for Coca-Cola, but if you're listening, I'm open to a fractional position with you through 360. But from there, I studied marketing. I went and I lived various places with marketing, Chicago, Barbados, in the corporate side. So a little bit on the agency side, but spent 20 years with GE Capital and ADP, lots of money marketing. So commodity marketing, financial marketing. In other words, kind of boring B2B marketing, but very important. And I would say it's what gave me the experience and expertise to jump into my own. So when I was 5 years ago, right before COVID, I was having a milestone birthday, and I thought, you know what, now's the time. And I always knew I wanted to kind of be entrepreneur or consultant, something on my own. 10, 15 years ago, the word fractional really didn't exist. It's only been becoming very popular lately. So now I feel like that's always what I thought I would want it to be, but I kind of jumped into the entrepreneur world and did a lot of, for lack of better words, placements, consulting, and now fractional, where you get to go in and help out with a project, come up with a solution, work with a team, and you kind of get to spread your expertise to different industries and different businesses. So, I would say I love my time in corporate because it gave me the foundation that I needed and the experience and expertise. But now I love working with startups, scale-ups, even enterprise level businesses to solve their go-to-market needs or their product launches or their events or their solutions and be part of it. So it's exciting. Every day is new, which is exciting.
Yes, it is. Everything, and in marketing, everything becomes new, right? So that's
Right.
that nothing stays the same. That's the one thing. You always have to be curious. You always have to be ready for the next change, the next challenge. We talked a lot, and you mentioned it, CMO, fractional marketing. Can you explain to our listeners what it is?
Yeah, sure. To distill it down, it really gives you, the business that's hiring you on as a fractional marketer or CMO, a chance to have an objective lens to probably a problem they have or a solution they're looking to solve instantly or quickly. I would say, a CMO can be in a position for many years and build a great marketing team. But when there's a scale up or a startup or even an enterprise that's in between CMOs, you need someone to come in and solve a problem. A lot of times they call us in for product launches, a new go-to-market strategy, or they're trying to do market research into a different segment. So I think the fractional part is that you get an objective lens and you get honestly on-demand expertise. So sometimes you can bring in someone and groom them all the way up to CMO, and it takes time, and it's a great thing to do. But if you don't have time, or if they're, we all know what's going on in the world this week. Imagine in the manufacturing, the tariffs, right? All of a sudden, you might need to bring in a fractional CMO that has an experience with that, because maybe your CMO in-house right now, or your marketing team doesn't, and you need someone to help. So I think it's almost like an outsider looking in, and it's objective versus subjective, and there's no emotion. When we go into a business, a lot of people have emotional attachment if it was their product or their campaign, but the fractional CMO can come in and offer objective advice, which I think is really a key benefit for them.
Interesting. And there are some businesses that never had a CMO. They could, like a salary of a CMO can rank up to $250,000. And that can be a bit too pricey for small businesses that are really looking for variable costs and want to scale pretty quickly. And they don't have the opportunity to really, or the budget to support a full-time CMO. So having somebody that already has experience in the industry and having them part-time, because you don't need to spend the cost to have them at a full-time level and be able to really help you scale and grow. And then when they are in the organization, they can help build an internal marketing team. So as the business scales and grows and the budget allows for a more full-time, you've got now this whole operation, this whole marketing team, and it can be a blend, because like 360 Integral Marketing, we are usually an extension of the marketing department in many organizations, where we take on overflow of work or a step in because we have expertise where in-house they don't have. So for many different reasons, it could be bandwidth, it could be lack of expertise internally, it could be just a better cost-saving approach to choosing a fractional CMO. I mean, what do you think would be some of the concerns that someone would have and say, oh, I don't want a fractional CMO, I'm going to lose control? What do you say to businesses when they say, I want to have the cost savings. I like the fact that it's a variable cost, and I have this flexibility, but am I going to lose control? Are you going to steal my business and my ideas away? What do you tell businesses that have those concerns?
I would say it is a big concern that pops up, and I often say to them, but I'm here, honestly, I'm working for you. At the end of the day, especially as a fractional CMO, I'm not working for a big corporation. I'm not really protected by any employee contract or HR rules and regulations. I'm really here to deliver ROI quickly. So I try to partner with the CEO or the founder or the president and say, listen, like, I'm hired by you and I feel accountable to deliver. And I often, honestly, one of the things I say, like, let's just try something small. Let's do a little pilot. Like, what is something that we can do quickly in a week that can prove to you my trust? And you know what? Sometimes, very rarely, it will be a fast fail, but that's okay. If they don't like the way you work together, it has nothing really to do with your expertise, your experience. Sometimes it just doesn't jive. But if you position it that way, that you're willing to try and do something for them, and often if you can say, well, what have you not been able to do to now? To today? What are you trying to do? What have you really been trying to elevate in the business that's been a problem? Throw it at you. So I think you gotta work out the trust issue. And a lot of founders, especially in startups, they're very protective of their business and they want to do it all. But as we all know, that's the number one way to fail. You can't do it all, right? So I think marketing is a natural one to outsource, because a lot of founders focus on sales and building their brand equity and building their company and the product, I should say product equity, and they bring the marketer to be creative and help them go to market. And that's expertise a lot of them don't have. So I think you just have to build a trust factor, and all you can say is like, listen, I understand your concerns. Let's just take a risk. Like, you're here for a reason. You're looking for someone to help for a reason, and you have to try to make them feel comfortable and at ease about it. It's not easy. It isn't easy. I get that.
That's great advice. Sometimes it's just do the trial. Like before we get fully married, Let's date a little bit. Let's figure out some immediate concerns that establish myself that, hey, I'm the right solution for you. And maybe sometimes you're not, right? But if you're not, as you say, as an entrepreneur and business person, you have to be open and flexible to opportunities as they come aboard and are faced with. And these challenging times, we need more think tanks to be able to address the problems, because these are new and different problems that we've never had before. So
absolutely. I was actually at an event last week and they said something very interesting. It was the founder of a big bakery chain in Toronto. And she said, everybody knows the expression fail fast, right? If you're going to try something, you hope to fail fast and move on, or obviously succeed. But she said she likes to stay fail fast and cheap. And what that means is like try to absorb the cost as effectively as possible. And with a fractional CMO, remember, you bring in a fractional CMO, could be for one project, 30 days, 2 months. But when you invest, to your point, in a fractional CMO full time, it's a lot of search. It probably would take months to find someone. It's a lot of investment. It's a lot of training. There's lots of burden rate. So if you are trying to do something out of the box or new product launch or new campaign with a fractional, you can kind of test it, fail fast and cheap, but hopefully succeed. And fractional CMOs have a very good success rates for that.
Yeah, excellent. And also, as you say, it can be, the change of times that you need that expertise. Well, you may not need it all the time. You may just need it at a certain point in time, you bring it in and you don't have that long-term commitment. Because as we know, it's very costly to hire somebody full-time. And it's very costly to get rid of someone that you find is not the right culture, not the right fit, or not finding solutions and challenges that need to be solved at a very quick, rapid pace in this market. A way of mitigating your risk when it comes to having to tackle marketing challenges in your business.
I totally agree. And myself, and I'm sure I speak to lots of fractional CMOs out there, I feel very accountable. When I go into a new business on a new project or a new term, I feel very accountable to prove myself. Because really, I'm representing me. It's my expertise. So you want to shine quickly. And I think it's flattering when they want you to retain you or take you on for the next project or call you back 6 months later or refer you to another business. So, it's your reputation. And I think that's a very important part about being fractional. Complacency is a very real thing in corporate. There's, after 20 years at the same job, some people excel, but some people, they get bored, right? So I feel like that's one thing. I never really get bored because it's always changing. To your point, marketing is always new and it's exciting.
Yeah, for sure. And that brings a really good question too. So we've talked a lot about the benefits of having a fractional CMO, and some listeners may be going, yeah, this is the right thing for my business. How do they go about interviewing and determining what the right fit is and selecting the right fractional CMO for their business? What advice would you share?
So it might sound cliche, but it really is about the instant impression. So when you're interviewing the fractional CMO, you're not hiring someone that needs to fit into your team long term, or that you need to see a succession plan for, or to cultivate their growth through your organization, right? So sometimes a lot of people get hired right out of school, they graduated, and the plan is, they're going to do this, but I see a 3 to 5 year growth plan this way. I think in any interview I've ever done with, usually it is the founder or the CEO or sometimes the CFO, it really is that instant chemistry, and it's the relationship, because they have to be able to trust you to come in and make decisions. Above all, that's what I think the fractional CMO is hired to do, is make decisions quickly without, having to engage all kinds of different parts of the organization. They trust you for your silo, what you're good at. And I think that instant impression is very important, because I often say this: you can teach a lot of things. Rocket science, maybe not quickly, heart surgery, maybe not quickly, but when you dive into new business, you can probably pick up the jargon and the language pretty quickly because they're hiring you for your expertise. So it's how do we work together? How did the conversation flow when they were interviewing you or talking to you? For a short-term gig in a gig economy, it's very important that there's chemistry. I would say that is the number one advice I'd give someone. If you leave the interview or the meeting being like, I know Tania said all the right things, but there was something off, go with your gut, because that chemistry is very important, because it's a short-lived project. It's usually probably like 1 to 3 months that you're trying to get action. and you need action. Usually they need something delivered quickly and they want to see the ROI. And mostly they want to make sure the investment is returned on me. So if I go out and do a campaign for a company, whatever my fee was, you want to make sure they see the value in that plus. So I think the chemistry is very important for that.
Would you add in that previous experience in that industry, previous experience in solving similar problems or challenges, having a similar culture? One thing you and I have in common is that we both came from corporate world. And in corporate world, they really instill with you process, control, quality management, the ability to work cross-functionally across different operations within the organization, really instill that strong team effort. You're not working in silo. I mean, as a fractional CMO, you may be, the only one in the group with that title, but you have to work with the team and you have to work with aligning what is meaningful to them and the different players in the organization. And I think, in corporate life, we do get that skill set and that training and that level of professionalism. As you say, chemistry is certainly important, but sometimes that chemistry is it's built into that chemistry as all the learning, the experience, and what you've done in the past that kind of says, yeah, we're clicking here. We're clicking.
Absolutely. I often say it's chemistry, like-mindedness. And a lot of times that's because you've drived in the same, work environment growing through your career. So, but I will give an example. So I was a fractional CMO for a not-for-profit. I didn't have much experience in not-for-profit, but they were looking to change into an enterprise piece of their non-for-profit. So not exactly, it's a B. So not exactly a for-profit, but they were really trying to target corporate. So they came after my expertise because I grew up in that environment, just like you're saying, Gabrielle. So they liked me because I knew that, and that was going to be their new market. They wanted to target women specifically in corporate. Because listen, 30 years ago, we know this, Gabrielle, they didn't have the kind of courses and curriculum and content that empowered women as they do today. So they hired my expertise because of my corporate, even though it wasn't for a corporate business. So I think that's very good because you can also bring your corporate background into, startups. A lot of people that start up companies, it's not corporate, but they love that you have that background because you know how to work in tough situations and across, like you said, across different areas, which is important.
The next thing as a business owner would be, how much is this going to cost me? Like you just mentioned, a CMO costs $250,000. That's a lot of money. Where am I going to get the ROI on that? And then you also talked about these are short term. So, they can be a short term project. I mean, I'm in discussions with businesses where they're not necessarily looking for short term. This is kind of where they may be building out for 1 year or 2 years, the relationship. It's just a way of them doing business, where others, as you say, it could be a bandwidth, it could be introduction to get into a new market, and they just want to get the skill set and run with it. So when businesses are looking for either side of it, what's the cost structure that businesses need to be prepared to look at?
So I think it's going to seem like an obvious answer, but it's a fraction of the cost because what people often, especially in startups and scale-ups, they don't think about the burden rate that goes along with hiring a full-time employee. So the average burden rate in Canada is 23%. That means for every $100 you pay someone, every $100 I receive, it actually costs the company $123 because of taxes, because of benefits, because of work and safety. Like there's all kinds of things. Not to mention the human cost of training that person, sick days, mental sick days. You know what I mean? So there is there's a hidden cost, the burden rate. So that is often, that doesn't apply to a fractional CMO because it's usually a set fee or a per hour fee that's not included. So I think it's a fraction of the cost is a good way to look at it, even if it is for a year or two, because a lot of times the other human cost is people get stagnant or stifled in their role after a certain amount of time because they're looking for the next role. We all want to grow. Progress is the key to humanity, like in your growth. So, but a fractional CMO is not looking for that. They're looking to come in, get the job done, and maybe move on to the next project, but not necessarily a succession. So I think between burden cost, human cost, and just like not having to worry about, oh, Tania's going to be bored, so we have to think of her growth structure. I think that's a huge, on top of the cost savings, that's a huge value to the owner using a CMO, fractional CMO.
Yeah, some very good insights around that, because I thought it was more like 30%, because you also have to have the office space for the person to sit in. You also have all the computers and all the hardware for them in order to operate and do the business. And then if it doesn't work out, you've got these huge package deals that you've got to give out to them, and can be some profit sharing and some stuff. So there's a lot of, I think when you say 23% is really on the low.
Well, and 23% would be directly the salary burden rate. So you're absolutely right. The office space, if we bring in lunch for everybody, that's what I said. There's the burden rate and the human cost, because having the coffee machines and the water, like all that kind of stuff. So you're absolutely right. 23% is the actual literal burden of your paycheck, but there's a lot of other costs that come with it, which I would say in the fractional world too, those human costs exist too, right? Usually the company wants you to be on their network, on their hardware sometimes. So there's a little bit of that, but for sure that 23% burden is not there.
We talked about it could be hourly, it could be a retainer. A retainer can have a certain conditions around it that so much work is being done. That contributes that roll up under that retainer, and if extra work or extra projects outside of what is in project would be costed out separately. So there are, or it can be a combination retainer plus hourly at once it reaches a certain threshold. So, depending on the contract that you have with them, and then there's always those, wiggle room where you can end the contract earlier. If things aren't working out, some exit plans around that too. It all depends, both sides being flexible and also anticipating what the needs are and what potentially can arise in the agreement and the work that they're going to be doing. So.
Absolutely agree. I've learned that too. It's very important to be flexible and try to operate the way the business is asking you to operate. Because if you're like, no, I only work this way, well, you're already starting off on the wrong foot, because the whole reason why they're bringing you on as fractional is because you're supposed to be more flexible and being, a fractional, right? So it's not like you're not negotiating a long-term employment contract for yourself. There's a key difference, and flexible is the right word for sure.
And now, there might be some listeners out there going, hey, I really think I could do this. I could become a fractional CMO. And maybe it's not a fractional CMO. It could be another executive level. It could be, a fractional CFO or, or an HR, some of the other operations departments that run the business, and taking a very senior level position. Is what would you say to those that are interested in saying, hey, I like this gig. I like the idea of only working part-time, being able to jump into different businesses and having all this cool experience in meeting and working with different people. What would be, I think there's two sides of it. One is what would make you marketable for it, and what would make you thrive in a business like that?
So I think two things. If you are, which most humans are, if you're a creature of routine and you just like going in and every day knowing what you have to do and get done, and you're used to the people you talk to, and you don't like forming new relationships, it's probably not ideal for you unless you're looking to challenge the status quo and step out of your comfort zone, which I do recommend. If you're, two words, if you're very agile, and if you, especially on the marketing side, or even even in any role now, because you know what, the world is such a different place. Even finance is different than it was 10 years ago, right? So, I mean, look at AI, everything's changed. So, but if you can be agile and you like to challenge yourself and learn different things and different industries, I think it's a great opportunity, because it's almost like an ongoing education. We get to, I've worked in the past 6 months alone, I've done hospitality, I've done legal tech, I've done real estate. So you get to dabble in all different things, But I always say this, numbers are numbers, right? Marketing is marketing. Yes, there's a difference between B2B and B2C, but now it's human to human. So the way B2B markets, when I was in corporate marketing for 10 years, B2B was very one way and B2C was a different way. But it's all changed. When you go into Starbucks and you see someone on their phone, you don't know if they're working or playing because you just can't tell anywhere, right? So I think it's a great time for it. So if you're agile and flexible, jump in. And if you really aren't and you're scared and you're bored in your job, it's something worth trying too. Just you have to be okay with the unknown is what I would say. Like you really have to be okay with learning something new and adapting quickly because that's what they're hiring for you for.
Right. And the privilege of working, I have a business degree, major marketing, I have corporate experience. Now I'm an entrepreneur and a podcast host. But so I mean, you have to have some type of pedigree or resume in order to even consider this. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't do fractional work in an organization at some capacity. And I think with the gig economy, it leads to that anyway. But to be on a C level, they are looking for a certain skill set in order to be able to perform, in order to be compensated at that level.
I absolutely agree. And, like I said earlier, I always knew that I was an entrepreneur at heart. Even when I was in high school, university, I always knew I wanted to start something. But I was very pragmatic and thinking, okay, I have to get the experience because who's going to hire me? Out of school, no experience. I want to go in and change the world. Well, no, where's your experience? So I would say that my 20 years spent in corporate gave me the tools that I needed to go on my own, start a business, work fractionally. Because exactly what you said, Gabrielle, they're hiring me not because I know how to help them sell hammers. Let's say I was working in the hardware industry, but they know that I have the mindset and the skill set to say, okay, this is a strategy of how we push this to market or we pull on these levers. So they're really hiring the toolkit that came with me, and that's all because of my education and my experience. So I don't advise you to do it right out of school. Get the experience. It's really important because that's what they're looking for. I 100% align with that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Do you go corporate? Do you go for the big work in the big business, or you work in small business? And there are pros and cons to both. If you work in small business, you're going to be doing a whole variety of different things, and you're going to learn a broad bandwidth of different things that you need to do. And if you're corporate, you become more specialized. But then in marketing, you've got much deeper budgets to be able to do a lot of really cool things. So that's the one thing about corporate is that they invest a lot more in technology, into training, and in the budgets being able to do all this different type of marketing. So it is a trade-off between the two. It's nice to have experience on both sides, mid to large. And that just and you also find what you're interested in, what you're not interested in. So not limiting yourself to any one type of corporation or industry, so that you can find yourself where your niche is and where you really want to be, because that's all part of the exploratory journey, is to figure out where do you fit. And times change. I thought I fit nicely in corporate. I love the corporate world at one time, but now I would never go back.
It's true. It's you grow. It's an evolution of who you are. I'm not the same person I was when I graduated school 20 plus years ago. But I think, and to your point, fractional is a really good way to test it. If you've been in corporate for 15 years, but you're like, what, I've always wanted to work on the consumer goods side, but I don't have the expertise. Well, again, if you have the skill set in marketing to do certain things, there might be a CPG company that's looking for that, and you could test it fractionally, and then maybe you end up landing there. It's a very global world, and I just feel like you can dabble in a lot of places and find your niche. So I think it's a lucky time to be in the workforce, to be honest. There's both options for a lot of people. I feel like when I graduated, but it wasn't as easy to do. There was no virtual work. There was no hybrid work. You know what I mean? It was very come in the office 8 till 6, and I am so happy about my corporate upbringing, but now I want to expand. And I think that's where you are. That's where I am today, and where a lot of people are.
Really good point, because with with COVID coming along post-COVID, we've learned and we demonstrate we can be really productive working virtually. We don't need to see people face to face all the time to be able to get the job done, be able to gather the information, be able to execute on whatever needs to be executed on. And so this has opened us up, and bricks and mortars are no longer the barrier. Geography is no longer the barrier to be able to work and to be able to excel in whatever we're doing. So, it is an awesome time. It is a great time to be able to be in the workforce. I mean, the other side of it is you don't have the camaraderie of rubbing shoulders with people every day. There is that human, that chemistry that happens when you see the person every day, and that connection. I think there's a little bit of a loss there. That's the trade-off, but the gains are there as well.
I absolutely agree. And I think we're lucky enough to have grown up in a world where there was no such thing as, I remember my very first job. I was an assistant in university, and I had to print emails from the CEO because he didn't even know how to use a computer. Like the internet emails, so we grew up in a world that was very non-digital, and now it's very digital, but we're lucky that we're hybrid. Like I like both. I like going into an office. I like seeing people. A lot of the new generation, they only want to do this. They want to work off of podcasts and virtual, but there's appetite for everybody, and every company hires differently. So there's lots of options, which is fantastic.
Yeah. I remember when I used to work at a bank, and we'd stand by the fax machine waiting for the creative to come in to approve it.
Yes. Right? So like times have changed quickly.
Yeah. Now some listeners, what's a fax machine? Go Google it.
Totally. I was going to say, anyone at 20, like, what's a fax machine? Yes. Absolutely. My kids would have no idea what you just said.
Yeah. And it's not FACTS.
That's right.
It's not a ChatGPT version, no.
That's right.
All right. Well, this has been awesome. Is there any other advice or direction you would give to someone that is considering being a fractional CMO, or someone is considering hiring a fractional CMO? Just in closing.
Yeah, I would say honestly, like anyone looking to be fractional or hiring fractional, like just trust it. If the thought is there, if you've even thought about it, then it's something to pursue. You know what I mean? And just take the first step, meet with someone. If you're on the fractional side and an opportunity comes your way, just have the meeting. And even from the first meeting, you'll get a sense if it's something you'd like to do. And for someone hiring, if you've thought about it, but you hear pros and cons, again, take a meeting. Nothing wrong can come out of meeting someone, right? It's back to, marketing sales 101. Your network is the most valuable asset you have, I think, in lots of business. So if the thought has crossed your desk or you've been curious about it, you know what? Take a meeting, try it. I think it's important it helps us stay current. It helps you keep on learning, right? Like the whole part of life is progressing. And I think it's a big part of the economy now. And I think it's only growing. So you know what? Why not?
Fabulous. And what we'll do is we will include the details to be able to have a discovery call with Tania if you are interested in saying, why not? Why not explore what a fractional CMO can do for your business? Thank you so much, Tania, for joining us and Jump Into It. We look forward to another fabulous guest. Please always tune in. Jump Into It is available as a podcast on your favorite platform. We are on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple, to name a few. With the courage and knowledge to bring your ideas to life, be ready to jump into it. Thank you for listening. Ready to jump into it and turn your vision into reality? Get the Jump Into It Breakthrough Marketing Guide, now available on Amazon, ebook, paperbook, or as an audiobook on your favorite platform. It's the perfect resource or gift for anyone ready to ignite fast wins and lasting success. Don't wait. Make your move now.